A woman never forgets every man she meets. She forgets the flowers, she forgets the gifts, she even forgets the promises whispered at 2 a.m., but she never forgets the men who change the way she sees herself, the way she sees life, and the way she sees love. And the truth is, most men spend their whole lives trying to impress women in the wrong ways: money, looks, status, attention, and still end up forgotten. Because a woman's memory doesn't operate on appearance, it operates on impact. Your presence writes a story inside her. And the question is, what story are you writing? There are 4 types of men that leave such a deep imprint on a woman's mind that even years later, when she has moved on, when she has healed, when she's married, when she has kids, she remembers him. Not always with love, not always with regret, sometimes with respect, sometimes with fear, sometimes with gratitude, but she remembers because these men awakened something inside her. They shifted something, they broke a pattern, they created one, they carved their names not in her phone contacts, but in her emotional history. Let me take you into the psychology of it, the reality no one wants to talk about, the truth women feel but never say out loud. A woman never forgets the man who made her feel safe, the man who gave her clarity, the man who pushed her to grow, and the man who taught her a lesson she will never repeat again. These 4 imprints last longer than romance, longer than dates, longer than gifts. This is emotional memory, and emotional memory outlives everything else. The first type of man she never forgets is the one who gave her a sense of emotional security she didn't know she was craving. It's not the man who says, "I'm here." It's the man whose presence proves it. When he speaks, she doesn't feel judged. When she shares, she doesn't feel mocked. When she's vulnerable, she doesn't feel weak. This man becomes a home in human form. And women never forget homes. They may leave the house, but the warmth stays with them. His calmness becomes the standard. His communication becomes the benchmark. His respect becomes the expectation. After him, she cannot tolerate chaos, confusion, or emotional immaturity. He ruins her for the boys pretending to be men. That's why he's unforgettable. The second type is the man who walked away with dignity. Women expect men to chase, to beg, to lose themselves, to prove their worth. But the man who can love deeply yet still walk away when he is disrespected, unloved, or taken for granted, that man leaves a scar she never erases. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He didn't wait around hoping she would wake up one day and suddenly appreciate him. No, he simply understood his value, picked up his self-respect, and left. That silence screams louder than 1,000 arguments. Years later, she remembers him not because he stayed, but because he didn't, because she finally understands what he was offering, and she realizes she will never find that same energy again. That kind of self-respect is rare, and rare things aren't forgotten. The third type of man she never forgets is the one who challenged her, not with ego, but with depth. He didn't entertain her excuses. He didn't clap for her self-sabotage. He didn't encourage her to stay comfortable. He saw her potential and demanded she meet it. He confronted her patterns. He held up a mirror when she needed it. He made her grow, even when she resisted. And women never forget the man who helped them evolve. It's not romantic in the usual sense. It's disruptive, uncomfortable, transformative. She remembers him because he was the turning point. He was the chapter where her life took a different direction. That imprint doesn't fade. And lastly, the man she can't forget is the one who broke her in such a way that she rebuilt herself stronger. This is the man who betrayed, who lied, who manipulated, who made her question her worth, not because he was powerful, but because she allowed it. And once she wakes up, once she heals, once she rebuilds, she never forgets him, not because she loves him, not because she hates him, but because he taught her the kind of pain she will never allow again. He becomes the lesson, the warning, the reason she becomes more selective, more guarded, more emotionally intelligent. He becomes the shadow she checks behind her before she lets anyone in again. These four men, the shelter, the dignified one, the challenger, and the mistake, they shape the emotional timeline of a woman's life. And every man falls into one of these categories. The question is, in which category do you want to be remembered? Because being unforgettable is not about being perfect. It's about being meaningful. It's about bringing something into her life that stays even after you're gone. A woman remembers the man who made her feel something no one else did. And men who understand this don't chase attention. They build presence. They don't demand loyalty. They inspire it. They don't beg for validation. They stand in their worth. And women don't forget those men. A woman also never forgets the man who mastered the art of calm intensity. The man who doesn't shout, doesn't panic, doesn't crumble under pressure, but his silence carries weight. His presence carries authority. His eyes speak more truth than other men's entire speeches. Women remember this type because emotional regulation is rare. When a woman meets a man who can control his mind, his reactions, his energy, it feels like she met a man who can control a storm. And storms don't forget the mountains that stood still when everything else was shaking. This kind of man becomes the quiet reference point in her memory. He never lost himself. He never reacted out of insecurity. He never became weak when the moment got heavy. That stability becomes unforgettable. And then there is the man who listens, not the man who waits for his turn to talk, not the man who nods while scrolling on his phone, not the man who pretends to care because he wants something. No, the man who truly listens, listens with attention, listens with intention, listens with curiosity. A woman never forgets him because he made her feel seen. Women remember the men who made them feel understood at a level even they hadn't understood themselves. One conversation with a listening man can create more intimacy than years with a man who only talks about himself. And this deep emotional presence becomes a core memory. Women also never forget the man who respected her boundaries genuinely, effortlessly, without making her feel guilty. Most men push. They demand, they negotiate, they test. But the man who honors her no, honors her pace, honors her comfort, that man stands out. Not because he was soft, but because he was secure. Secure men understand that patience is powerful, respect is masculine, pressure is insecurity. And women never forget a man who made them feel safe in their own skin. His respect becomes a benchmark she subconsciously compares every future man to. Another unforgettable type is the man who valued his mission more than her validation. Women admire men who are driven, disciplined, and focused on a purpose bigger than romance. Instead of making her the center of his world, he made his purpose the center, and she naturally wanted to orbit around that strength. She can't forget him because he introduced her to a version of masculine focus she rarely sees. A man with a mission doesn't chase approval. He doesn't overinvest in temporary emotions. He lives with direction, and direction is attractive. Women don't forget men who move with intention because intention is rare. And then there's the man who gave her the kind of peace that healed parts of her she didn't talk about. He didn't try to fix her. He didn't try to save her. He simply created an environment where she could breathe, where she felt accepted, where she felt valued without performing, where she felt appreciated without pretending. Women never forget the men who make them feel emotionally safe enough to be their real selves. She remembers how she could sit next to him in silence and still feel connected. She remembers how one conversation with him could melt her stress. She remembers how his energy felt like a shelter, not a battlefield. A woman also never forgets the man who surprised her with his emotional clarity, the man who told her exactly what he felt, exactly what he wanted, and exactly what he stood for, not with desperation, not with neediness, but with conviction. That emotional transparency is unforgettable because most men hide their feelings behind ego, games, and fear of rejection. A man with emotional clarity feels like fresh air in a world full of masks. She remembers him because he was real. Realness is rare, and rare becomes memory. And then there is the man she never forgets because he never tried to possess her. He didn't trap her. He didn't manipulate her. He didn't cling to her. He gave her freedom, freedom to choose him, freedom to grow, freedom to be herself. And paradoxically, that freedom made her more attached, more connected, and more drawn to him. Women don't forget men who know how to love without controlling, hold without squeezing, guide without dominating. That kind of masculine softness is unforgettable. Some men are remembered because of the pain they caused. Some are remembered because of the peace they brought. Some are remembered because of the standards they set. Some are remembered because of the transformation they triggered. But all unforgettable men share one common trait. They impacted her life at a psychological level. They shifted something inside her. They awakened something. They taught her something. They raised her standard for herself and for others. She never forgets the man who made her feel like the best version of herself, not through compliments, not through flattery, but through presence, presence that uplifted her, presence that strengthened her, presence that challenged her. A woman might forget the moments, but she will never forget the version of herself she became with a certain man. He becomes a memory not because of what he did to her, but because of what he awakened in her. A woman may forget the messages, the outings, the conversations, even the promises, but she will never forget the man who shifted the way she thinks, the way she feels, and the way she values herself. And that is the real lesson. You don't become unforgettable by pretending to be perfect. You become unforgettable by being intentional, by standing in your worth, by moving with clarity, by respecting her and respecting yourself even more, by creating an impact that outlives your presence. In the end, every man chooses the kind of memory he leaves behind. Some men leave confusion, some leave regret, some leave lessons. But the men who rise above all are the ones who leave growth, peace, and standards so high that she can't lower them again. Be that man, not for her memory, but for your legacy. The world forgets faces, but it never forgets character. And if you master that, you won't just be remembered, you'll be respected long after you're gone.